So I just solved this chapter over a couple of sessions, and now I'm looking at the solutions, and we can go over those things together. Which should be as interesting as solving, honestly, because it's good to be able to read the annotations of a strong player and someone who put a lot of thought into writing a book about chess. So let's get to it. So the first thing that I notice about reading the solutions here is that there's an unusual stipulation that you should only have to find the first move to be successful in this chapter. And normally guessing the first move is pretty easy in some positions. And that's especially true if you don't agree to play a certain move. So I made some firm decisions about what I would play. Hello, Blitzicle. Yeah, I decided to stream early because I saw you guys were saying it's like too late. I think it might even make sense too, so I have no problem with it. Anyway, so let's see the examples in order of their explanation. Alrighty, so this first one is here. And he gave some commentary here. I'm not gonna read the commentary to everyone. You can read it on the page if you want. Hey, Blitzicle just subscribed for 3 months. Thank you. That's awesome. I wonder if you noticed the last time I subscribed to your channel. It's been a while just because I don't have a regular subscription, but I really appreciate it. And anyone who's watching, feel free to check out Blitzicle's stream. He also is making some chess content. Okay, so here he says that Ruslan places pieces on good blockading squares, but yada yada yada. The breakthrough is 94, which was my answer. So at least in that very simple way of thinking, I got this puzzle right. Eater Master, welcome. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. However long you can stay is cool. So 94 was what I gave as my main line, and it was the move played in the game. And he only gives commentary after the move knight e1. My main line was with knight c5. Does he even mention knight c5? He does not. He mentions knight to c1 and gives it a question mark. He says that after e3, bishop takes e3, rook f6, it's winning. I suspect that he gave this line and not the other one because the refutation is the same. It took me a while to see this during the live stream, but I did eventually find rook f6, which just wins the game. Like, they cannot defend the bishop. So it's sort of 6 of one, half dozen of another. Knight c1 is arguably more passive looking. Maybe he thought it was more logical, but it's the same. Okay, anyway, in the game they played knight e1, and the game eventually ended in a draw, which is funny because I thought this was a promising position. At the same time, it doesn't utterly shock me that this could be a draw. It's not like the knight on e1 is trapped or anything, and black has some weaknesses to deal with. For instance, the h-pawn and the bishop are both hanging. The a-pawn is not that easy to protect. So we might see something here like, I don't know, like rook c2. They anyway must have agreed to a draw on this move. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Which was white to play. He says that black had planned to drive the opponent out of the center, but as the world of biophysics knows, the effect of pressure depends on the material concerned. Okay, no need to become a scientist all at once. Man becomes a grandmaster, thinks he's a scientist all at once. Okay, classic case. Chess players think that they're masters of the universe just because they can play this difficult board game very well. But I digress. So okay, queen takes d5 is the first move. What did I put? I put queen takes d5. So I got this one right technically by his metric. What's his main line? E takes f4, double question mark. This is also the main line that I had. He gave it double question mark. I'm gonna just put that down because I think that's funny, maybe worth remembering. He said rook a d8, which I also played in my notes, and queen b5, and he calls this plus minus. In my notes, I checked this and then a little bit further. I saw that like this variation just goes on, but like white is just better, so I think that I got that right. And I saw rook b7 here. What did he say? Yeah, rook b7. Exactly, that's right. So this is the answer that he gives in the book. I can scroll down a little bit so you can read it better, hopefully. And he gives a short sequence that ends in a win. So we can see king takes. Did he play queen d7? Yes. King a6, queen c6, king a5, queen c5. Okay, this is where we broke off. I said rook d1, and this is his move. And then king a6, queen d6, is that right? King a5, rook d1. A little finesse there. It's the same idea as my rook d1 move, I guess, but why did he choose this, actually? Obviously, he has controlled the position. He can do what he wants, because if the king ever steps on the b line, then there's rook b1, which is very nice. So why does he want the queen on d6? I guess it's just to interfere with rook d8, because I remember when I said rook d1, this was my main concern, and I was thinking queen c7 here to keep things going. But this is a nice little insertion, so that if they play rook d8, we play rook d5 with checkmate, which is way better than trying to win a rook and play a queen endgame. So I like their answer more, but he only said I had to guess the first move, so that's good. All right. Where's the next one start? Oh yeah, right here. This one I solved extremely quickly, I remember, and it looks like my answer is right, which is nice. I kind of just saw, I'm getting compensation for the exchange. Why not play like this? Their main line is the same as mine, which is good. Oh no, I think my main line was actually rook b1. And I gave bishop e3. What's he say here about that? He said the most resilient is rook a3. Okay. I didn't even look at this move. But anyway, his response is the same, and he gives black is slightly better after bishop e3, fe3, queen d1, rook d1, bishop e6. Which I felt in the game after an apparently less resilient move, rook b1. Like here I could play queen d1, they have to take with the f rook anyway, and after bishop e6, it's probably very, very similar. Okay. And it looks like in the game they played rook a8, which is a move that I looked at. Eatermaster's asking if I copy all the positions manually. Yes, I did. I don't have a digital book. I just put it into Lichess so that I could show it to you guys while we talk. Normally, when I'm reading a chess book, I don't set it up on a board though. Normally, I just read it like a normal book. So, and here he gave a line where black is winning a pawn. So, black is even better here than in the other line that we looked at. Not very good defense with rook a8, but that's what happened. Okay, so that's good. So far, I haven't missed any examples, although I think I'm diverging from their play on like move 4 or whatever. But that's fine. It's not what the chapter's all about. So we go to 4, next example. give some macho commentary here, which is funny. And he gave h5 a double exclam, which I will also, just for fun, because that was the move that I chose. The only other move that I looked at with any seriousness was queen f6, at least according to what I wrote down here. Maybe it's just because we were discussing, though, because I just end it with him taking the rook on f8, and it doesn't look that great. I might have been thinking about getting compensation here, but I don't think that it's really coming together. So this was the move that I eventually settled on. And it just says minus plus after one move with the rest of the game, more or less. He gives a note for queen f4, which is a move that I didn't look at, apparently. I looked at bishop f4. And he claims this is just better. He doesn't even give a response, I don't think. I guess if rook f4, then knight d6, so you might see something like this. And it's not hard to imagine black being much better here. Like this knight is hanging, for example. You just take it. Or maybe even take that, rewind it back with bishop d4 on the next move. Okay, so bishop f4 is clearly bad. They probably do this to keep it spicy, but the show doesn't quite go on. I think knight d6 looks fine. I think maybe even bishop c3 is good. We're just a piece up without even necessarily looking for something better, like no in between moves. Okay, so that makes sense. I think that's probably why we didn't look at it on stream. Isn't the knight hanging? Isn't the king protecting the knight on f7? But yeah, the knight on c3, I took it in that line, so it's hanging. Makes sense. Just take it off. Hope that's what you meant. The main line here is rook e1. He gives a few other moves that don't make a lot of sense. I think this was probably the one that was concerning, where it's like they take on f8, and then my move was pawn takes g4. Let's see, what did he give here? Yeah, he gave this, and then h4, which is a move that I didn't look at. I just kind of left it there. I think I was satisfied. Anyway, here this takes. He gives this move, which I don't remember seeing. And then bishop d4 check. Okay, I didn't see all that. And what's going to happen here? Probably this. And then this. Oh, but then there's a checkmate right here. Okay, so maybe not that. Oh yeah, this first. Protects the mate. At the very least. There might be other options, but that looks kind of easy. Okay, so that's an interesting line. I think I just kind of sensed that this was the moment where you need to play something like h5. I didn't see all the way, which I don't entirely approve of, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. The rest of the game, according to his notes here, ends with rook d2 check. So they added this in-between move. And then it's a flurry of spicy moves. Black has a huge material compensation for the queen. Not even like with an unsafe king, really. They're unsafe on the light squares maybe, but fully compensated. And they resign here because they have to lose the queen on the next move. King g3, knight d4, or something like that. Knight g5, whatever. Okay, so we're moving on. 5. Okay. He says numerous people devote their lives to chess, but nobody ever fully uncovers all its secrets. That sounds like something to add to our quotes. Does this work? Hold on, let me try a command. I think that worked. Yep. And that's quote number 64. Appropriate, somehow. Alrighty, so one of the game's subtleties is the floating value of the pieces. Yes, pieces can have different values, which is apparently subtle. So he says that rook takes d6 is the favorable move. Let's see what we put. Here, king h7 was in the game, but the main line we gave was rook takes d6. I remember I came back to this position actually after the stream, because I was thinking about it later on. And I realized that I had rejected this erroneously, because there's a long variation, which for once I actually thought about. So there's a check, and then it looks like you're just, you know, playing down an exchange, but the knight on b3 is actually very, very strong. So what I saw was knight c1, king g2. I think this is what dissuaded me. Like, I thought about it was like knight d2, knight c1, whatever. I thought about these on stream, but it didn't impress me. But now that I look at this, they can move their rook wherever they want. It's just not really earning its keep. For example, rook f1 is the move that I played in my notes. I think the reason that I didn't consider this strongly is this move. But after rook f1, there's knight f4. And black has just the better pieces. So I eventually changed my mind. I was thinking about this during the live stream and saying that the pawn is going to run down, but I didn't feel convinced. So that's why I changed my mind. Anyway, it looks like in the game he played king h7, which he gave a question mark, which I will too. And then after bishop e5, rook g8, they have to play passively to survive. I would prefer white here. The knight on b3, or in the next couple of moves on d3, it's pretty good. But I'm not sure how important any of the squares under attack from d3 really are, or from b3. Meanwhile, I think white is invading on the 7th rank. That seems really important. Access to the full board via the 7th rank. So it went like this. And a pawn breakthrough. I actually didn't think it would come like immediately. Does he give a note about this? He says rook f7 exclam, and then let me see. Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We're just looking at the solutions for some puzzles that were solved on stream from the book Perfect Your Chess by Vola Keaton. Where's the d5 move in the notes here? We were just looking at this. 38. Yeah, d5. He doesn't even mention something about it. He gives knight a4 as an alternative move compared to the game. And d takes. Knight c5. e7, knight e6. Preventing rook f8. Bishop d6, a5. I mean, this position's already pretty bad. If you really have to play a5 here, it doesn't look that hopeful. Like, even if you get 2 extra moves, they can just play bishop takes a3. I guess you're hoping to get b5, b4, so that's why you start with a5. You really want to run that b pawn. But like, white's position just looks kind of dominant. Very good position. For instance, you might play like bishop e5 and take on g7 when they can't take back with check, with the idea that if they play rook takes, you make a queen, and if they play knight takes, then I was thinking rook f8, but actually that's not so good. Anyway, that's just an idle thought. Bishop e5 could be a good move later on. So it was rook f8. And it's a unclear position according to him. It's probably not unclear if I turn on the engine, but that's beside the point. White's winning chances are not amazing, actually. Now that I noticed that they have only 2 pawns here, but since the e-pawn is passed, maybe it's not impossible. The issue could be that the bishop is needed to stop the pawns and the king is needed to stop the pawns, which would give them time to maybe go win that best pawn. And then just having his h-pawn left at the end won't be enough to win for sure. So unclear makes sense, but let's check the engine real quick. This position says slight advantage for black. Definitely not what I was thinking. No, it's coming out to 0, so maybe it's not unclear, maybe it's just equal. At least engine-wise. Interesting position, though. So knight e4 was played. And he rejected king g6 on the basis of this variation. I guess the a-pawn running is counterplay. And here he played rook e8, which is apparently a mistake. Probably black was really just like calculating for a few moves ways to activate this rook, because it is their worst place piece. So it's a pretty natural error to try to activate it like that. So what does he give? He gives knight d3 exclamation point. And he says rook b5 is the only move. Let's see why. Let's say they just play something like bishop c3, just for sake of argument. Here's a little combination. Okay, so I can buy how rook b5 might be important. Then he says rook e8 now, after adding this move in. Bishop a1, safe-ish square, rook e2 check. Okay, so without even checking the end of the line, I think there must be an issue with directly playing this, because it looks like it should transpose in some way, like this. What's the difference? Maybe this is the difference, where the rook probably has to go back. Yeah, I think this is probably the issue. Okay, so in the game they played, knight takes a4 and lost. He said that here after knight b3 that we have bishop f2 and white has counterplay. And this was a draw. Okay. Is that a bad result for black from the start position? Let's see. Yeah, that's true, because they were winning a piece here. So it's just they missed a tactic. So it probably goes from like minus plus to complicated kind of equality here. Maybe slightly better for white. Here it even, the chess engine seems to like black somewhat after rook g8. Interesting. I'd still regard this as some kind of complicated equality. Alright. Here we are on move 10 of a chess game. Hold on, did I skip one? I might have skipped one. Oh, this is not the critical moment. I just didn't get all the way to it. Okay, this is it. My bad. And my move was g5, which has the idea. I think this is also one that I solved pretty quickly. The idea here is to support the knight on e5 against the f4 break. Now, I thought this was based on a little bit of concrete calculation because I need to prevent the g pawn from supporting f4, the f4 break. So I think I need to just check and see what they said about the next couple of moves. It says g5, queen e3, hg3. Okay, this doesn't really surprise me at all. The idea of this move is that if they take with the pawn, then they will never be able to contest this knight. The knight is going to be super good right here. And if they take with the queen, then it's going to take them a very long time to arrange a successful f4 break. For example, queen f6. And it looks like this is the game. This is not my calculation. This is just what happened in the game. And here, Volokhin gives them of king f8, which further reinforces the f4 square in an indirect way because the g-pawn is not pinned. So got this one. Let's look at 7. Okay, this is our position. Here, I gave f5 as one move. I think this is my main move, and bishop f3 was the other move that I considered at the behest of the streaming community. So here he gives knight e4, a move that I did not even play when I was looking at it on stream before. So this is a good moment to look at. He says that, okay, so here if you play f5, then knight g3 is a good move. This makes sense to me, because if you play a move like h4, I think after knight h5, the knight is earning its keep. It's going to go on these dark squares on the king side. It's going to disturb the piece. It's good. I like it. And he explains further that the idea here is to play g4. Important. I'll put a note here. . so 94, good move. I played f5, and he doesn't mention f5 on this move. So this might be a good moment to introduce a little engine analysis. But first, I want to follow their main line. 94. F takes e5. Okay. Main line. F takes, d takes, queen takes, hitting the rook, bishop g5 check, probably king b1. Yeah, bishop d7, saving the queen, and then rook takes d7. Are there no other moves here? Not like queen e7, not queen c7, nothing. I can see how white's position is already quite good, though. Oh no, the rook is hanging. Of course, you have to play this. Just lapsing here. Okay, so rook takes, good move. This is the idea. So of course they're going to play this one. But this should run into rook d1. Adding insult to injury. He says king e8 is a better move. But I'm not sure there's like a huge point in analyzing a position like this. It's opposite colored bishops, and white has the initiative with the queen. Furthermore, I think they're going to have a material advantage very soon. So, not too worth it to look at the rest of this line. What else is in their main line? Anything else interesting? Nah, just leave it here. So the main thing I'm interested in is like, what happens if you play f5 here? I think this is an alternative solution because the engine seems to like it a lot. In fact, it's the top move. So I'm just going to label this engine's choice because I still respect the author's choice of best move. I doubt that he failed to see the move f5, and he probably just preferred the move 94 for whatever reason. I don't think this book was written with engine corroboration, at least not much. Maybe very weak engines back in like 2000 something. So, but this move definitely like appeals to me on the surface of it. My main line was f takes e5, queen e5, bishop f6. I give queen e3, which is actually losing to bishop g5. So that might have just been a sample line, but the idea is right. At least using the criteria of like, did you get the first move? And the center's just collapsing here. Like, knight d5's in the air, bishop move, and then rook e1, taking on e6. It's quite nice. For instance, let's say they just play some normal move like this. Then we can already take, and I was thinking queen g6 originally, but now knight e4 also works. So I don't think the f5 really burns any bridges. We still have knight e4 ideas here. Definitely a valid alternative move, and engine's top choice. Okay, so we're going to the next one. This is our critical moment, and it's white to play. This one I also seem to recall that I made a quick decision to play my move c5, which is what they gave in the book. I don't think I assessed it as white is much better, though. I think I assessed it as this is my most practical chance because my pawn on c4 is hanging and I don't want to play b3. He doesn't give a line here for b3, but the thing that was in my mind was the move b5, and I just want to check that with the engine real quick. This is white is slightly better after a4, not the first move that comes to my mind. Idea is to take and play b4, getting counterplay like this. I'm just going to mark this as counterplay. And b5 is the top move for black. So let's see why this is like much better for white, because that's the claim here. It says bishop e6 was played and is not the most critical continuation. And it seems like he thinks the most critical is this one, which is the first one that comes to my mind. And then f4. Yeah, I think I need to do something fast if I'm going to sack a pawn like that, so makes sense. And after e5, the move given is bishop f5, which didn't cross my mind even a little bit. Let's see what happens if I just take on f6. Somehow I am simply not believing this move. Did I read it wrong? Okay, he has an interesting idea. So we take and take. Like this. And it's white to play. They could do whatever they want here, but he's claiming compensation for a piece. It says an interesting position, despite having an extra piece and the move, white must enter the forced variation, rook b to c1. I guess overprotecting the knight in anticipation of rook d8 so you can play queen e1 without dropping a piece. But that allows bishop c2, rook c2, rook e3. So I can see the compensation in the air. Yeah, definitely an interesting variation to share with the audience. But he gives rook, I think he gives rook c d8. Hold on, let me read this a little bit more closely. Okay, no, he says rook c d8, right. Makes sense. That's the rook I thought. This is the move that occurred to me. And I thought that bishop c2 was the move. Well, here he gives knight d5 and queen takes d2. So this is more the main line in their eyes. I don't think I would choose this. Anyway, all this makes it kind of clear that black is getting what they want in the position. So I want to just check if it's really true that rook c1 is the move, because there's got to be other options here. Alright, computer says bishop f2. Interesting move. The point is, let's see, rook c d8. What does white play? Queen c1, and they just, you know, are cool with everything. It says black is slightly better here. If black is slightly better from the start position, then this is actually a fantastic sacrifice. Yeah, I actually really like this. This is a nice idea. Not something that you're going to get like exactly the way it is in a real game, probably, but a concept to remember maybe, that like white's pieces are not coordinating super well against the frontal attack by the rooks. This arrangement of the minor pieces makes a lot more sense when there's a pawn on c4 and e4. That's a common way of playing against a Maratse, actually, at least conceptually. That you're going to try to destroy the pawn structure so that the white pieces look silly for a little while, and you do dynamic stuff to take advantage. Anyway, the most important thing in my case was that I need to figure out that c5 is the move to play. I didn't realize white is better here. In fact, I'm actually unsure if that's really true. That's what the author said, but this variation is very interesting. It says black is better, like much better. Okay, maybe this answer is wrong. Like c5 was my best guess, but okay, here's b3. This was a move that I looked at. It was between these two moves, c5 and b3. Here, I didn't see a4. I think I saw just pain. Lots of pain. I'm actually right in front of the microphone. I hope that you can hear me. I don't think I can make it much louder than that. Hope that's better for you. And welcome, Jubilees. Let's go to the next one. Okay, I'm glad that's working for you. Okie dokie. So next one is... So it's actually debatable, this last example, if c5 is really good. I guessed it, maybe by luck, but I'm not sure why, after looking at the engine, it's the best move. So the next example is 9, which is what we have here. This is our critical moment. And the move that I chose was knight c6, which is a move that the author gives an exclamation point. This is also a position where it's hard to play the move knight c6, so I'm curious again about the engine evaluation. Peter Baelish, welcome. Thank you. Here I played knight c6 almost out of frustration. Sometimes I play good moves in a frustrated way. But, you know, I don't play them knowing that they're the best move, which I think it's important to know your move is the best if it really is. Here it just seemed to me that trying to, for example, capture on b6 is naive when you need your development completed. But I also didn't see something really great about it. Anyway, just finishing development, so let's see why he likes this move so much. So setting up a threat, not c3. c3 occurred to me, although I didn't write a note about it. I think I just rejected it right away on the basis that my pieces are better. Like, why should I trade them off? Let's see what he gives. He gives knight fd7. I didn't see this move. It threatens queen f2, which is not mate, but, you know, it's not bad. And e4, the better position. That's a nice answer. I didn't see it because I didn't have to. I saw this. Here I gave knight b4 in my notes. In this chapter, getting the first move is sufficient to say that you solve the puzzle, but I still like to compare these things. So I gave knight b4 with the idea that I'll play e4 now, which I considered unclear. Engine says that white is better, somewhat. It's like an embattled decision. Here it says d4 is crushing for black, so big difference there. Knight b4 is not as good as d4. So this is something to think about. Why is d4 so much better? Well, it's opening the center when the king hasn't castled yet. That's strategically sound. I suppose it just doesn't really give any chances. Oh, you know what else I'm missing about this? When I was thinking about knight b4, I was thinking that it's exposing the bishop, but that's not true. So the move d4 also is activating the bishop on b7. I think those are good things. Okay, I'm gonna move ahead. Interesting position again. Actually, first we check what's the computer saying. And it's saying knight c6, huge advantage. Interesting. I was just guessing though, I didn't feel confident. So queen f3 happened. And now it's black to play. And the move given was bishop b2. I arrived at bishop b2 again out of frustration, not like confident that it's good. The reason I arrived at bishop b2 was I was looking for normal moves, and I kept finding that white is playing the move c5. Just as a sample, if I play this maybe lackadaisical kind of move, I believe that they can immediately activate their rook. And if I want to play queen d8 to try to continue to have an active existence, this was my problem, c5. So the specific problem is what made me feel that it's important to play bishop b2 and bishop a3 to prevent c5. But it also takes a defender away from the king. Since white has castled kingside, that's not as big of a deal, but they do have, for example, the f5 break. So it's not a trivial decision to play it like this. So let's see how they justified. MCAT. Would I actually consider that in a real game? Yes, I absolutely would. I think that when I'm solving problems, it very much is the same as how I'm thinking during a regular game. There are some differences though. Like obviously there's a meta psychology aspect where I know that this is a puzzle, but I usually, like, the reason I'm solving puzzles is to try to improve my tournament performance. So I won't really write down an answer, or in my mind write down an answer, because I'm like, oh, this is a puzzle, it has to be this move, because I know that if I think like that during a tournament, it's going to sabotage my results. So I do think that there's a pretty close coupling between how I answer a puzzle and how I play it in real life. Okay, so going ahead, kind of losing my voice here, so I'm probably gonna wrap up soon. So he played bishop b2, rook c2, bishop a3, the same sequence that I thought. But his justification is that in this pawn structure, the exchange of dark square bishops favors black, because white will feel the weakness of the dark squares. See, I thought it was actually the opposite. I was worried about white playing c5, so this is why I chose it. But his idea here is that he wants to get rid of that bishop in order to make white feel the burn on the dark squares. But I was worried about my own king here. Granted, they don't have to play the move rook d2. They could play king h1. This is the move that I wrote down in my notes that I considered most strongly. I thought that after bishop c5, they would play bishop c1. And it looks like I missed a tactic here. This is a fork. Black is slightly better, apparently, after queen c3. It's so slight, engine evaluation-wise, that it doesn't even make sense to talk about white being better here. But, you know, if that's true, it really means there's nothing to worry about. So, I follow their reasoning. I also thought there was just no other move. Like, if I don't know how on the light chess browser to make it consider multiple lines. I don't think that's really a thing. Queen a3 is another move that it says. So let me just play moves until it tells me that it's losing. So there's queen a3, there's bishop b2, rook c8 is much better for white. Actually, even queen a3 it says it's better for white, and bishop b2 better for white. Bishop b2, rook d5. I thought about this, but I didn't really write it down. This is just a sample line where white continues to be better. This is a very hard position for black. I'm not sure bishop a3 is actually the best move, or bishop b2 to a3. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is there. Interesting example, but not necessarily something to like guide your play. If I had to make a final say. Okay, so this one has a very short answer. It's just knight takes e5 for this position. That's the move I gave. Knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes. And I gave that if bishop e4, I'll play knight f3 and take on d4. I think it's just like small tactics. Yeah, he just is winning material. Okay, number 12. Right here. Move given is F3. This move is the first move that comes to my mind because I want to mess up their kingside position. It's also the notion that black has fully prepared their forces for an attack on c3, and if you take on d4, then that pressure evaporates. But if you can get the knight to move, you can actually play rook c3. So f3 is like a move I would play anyway. The only thing discouraging me is that they could take with the knight, but since c3 is hanging, they really can't. He gave bishop d1, a move that I didn't look at. f3, bishop d1. He gave this also a mark. A dubious move. So maybe it's good that we didn't consider it. And black plays d5, pressing in all three regions of the board. Center, queenside, kingside. When I look at this move, d5, it takes me a minute to adjust to the darkness. If they take on d5, I fully agree. I'm just looking to see if they have an option besides that. No, I guess it's just straightforwardly good. Like, you're going to take on e4 next. It doesn't matter if they play like bishop f3, because you can take whatever. And in this, apparently in the game they play queen d4, which is snazzy. Nice move. I was thinking bishop d4, which probably runs into rook d1 or something. MCAT is remarking about how often during the tactics puzzles the engine finds a tactical resource as a partial defense that hadn't been considered. Yeah, that's the whole meaning of prophylaxis, right? Like spotting your opponent's resources, which I think defensive resources, especially like in modern chess, are like almost completely identical to the attacking resources, and just as abundant. So there's a great diversity of defensive ideas that are super forcing, super difficult to see sometimes. Defense is inherently harder than attacking, just because it requires you to also understand the attack and be able to refute the attacking ideas. So being really strong in defense requires you to be a strong attacking player as well, to some degree. All right, now we're getting near the end here. The end for now. We have 3 more examples. He says the obvious idea is to move the rook and discover an attack on the black queen. But the threat is more powerful than the execution. I don't think I even considered a move besides this one. I don't have any notes here except for knight d5. Yeah. It's too bad Coach Luis isn't here in the chat today. We always meme on an old game that we played together where I played knight takes d5, and he tells me always that it traumatized him. Like, he wakes up screaming, remembering this move, knight takes d5. So this position is actually just like that one that we had in our own blitz game. Alrighty, so we go to this one now. Next one. Oh, by the way, anyone who knows Coach Luis, he has started streaming on Twitch recently. His handle is Chuniflow, so check him out. He's on my recommended streamers list on Twitch. So for this one, he says, this game was incorrectly evaluated in several chess publications. It was analyzed in multiple places because it was of theoretical interest, but all of the publications were saying that white is better up in exchange. Bologan is a strong player. The guy who had white and won this game. But this position is black to play. Queen e6 is given a question mark. And I think this is my main line. I mostly analyzed what white would do afterwards. Because I remember thinking about queen c7 and how this move doesn't really make any sense. That a move that we want to prevent could be like rook h3 at some moment. When I thought white was just much better. Flipping on the engine, it looks like it's zeros. Rook f6, queen d2 is what they played. h5 I think was the first thing, but then rook f3 is equal. Okay, so maybe even queen c7 could be a thing. Oh, Juvelace on YouTube did something that I've never seen before. It's one of those super post thingies. So thank you for trying that thing out. That's cool. I like that. It's also a recent feature for my YouTube channel, so I like to see the new stuff get put to work. I think YouTube could probably have been a little bit more savvy about like what they call that new feature, the super something or other. But you know, it is what it is. He says that queen d6 is the correct move. I wonder if queen c7 applies as well. So this is his move that he likes a lot. I wonder how it sizes up. Is it just equal or is it really better? Here it says h5 rook takes f3, which is just like queen c7, which is the only other move that I really considered aside from queen e6. So now that is showing equal, like, is this really? This move is showing is slightly better than queen c7 and queen d6, but like, no, not really. It's showing zeros now. I think it's all the same actually. He said this was misevaluated and so on, but you know, all these moves are equal. It's just an equal position, perhaps. I had a hard time really picking out a move that I preferred. I thought it was good to try to prevent rook h3, so that's why I chose this one. And I don't want to lose my e-pawn, so that's why it's not queen d7, for example. Even queen d7 might be equal, but I think it's also playing with fire, because I don't want the d-pawn to drop off. Yeah, I'm not sure I understand why he is so prosaic about queen d6. It's just normal position. All right, and we're moving on to the last one. Last one for today, anyway. We will continue next time. And he says, given the apparently exposed position of the white king, opening the center appears horrible. The move e5 is played. I gave the move rook c1, I think, and this variation, winning material. But I also have a, oh yeah, I also came back to this one after the stream because I was wondering, like, what if they just played b6? I think the answer to that question is nothing. They just play b6 and they're fine. So I think rook c1 is a blunder. If I gotta check it with the computer. It actually says white is still much better here, but probably not after rook c5, right? Like b6 and rook c5. Well, actually here it says white is even better. Interesting. But the key in each instance is to find this move e5. So I don't see any reason why my move should be better than just playing e5 straight up. And lo and behold, white is +3 here. Alright, so he said rook e8 is forced. And I didn't consider this line, so I don't have anything here. But the idea is very similar to my own idea. If they take with the knight, then there's knight e7, which wins the queen. if they take this way, then the knight hangs. So this move really should have been on my radar. E5. Rook e8 makes a lot of sense as the only move. Now taking this is reinforcing our possession of the e7 square. It's just like, are we cool with rook takes e3? What's he give as his comment for this? He says black has no choice. But there's not really much else to say about it, right? Like after rook takes e3, white even has material superiority. Right? This bishop on h8 doesn't really count. Like white is just much better here. Bishop f6 is probably the only thing that is logical. But then after queen d5, I think we're looking at rook f6 and rook f1 in the next couple of moves. So what's their comment? He says queen d5 exclam, bishop d4, and rook f3. Could they suffer this check? I wonder. Maybe not enough control of the dark squares. At the same time, we're threatening rook d7 quite strongly. I wonder how this position... Yeah, this is completely winning for white. So probably rook f3 isn't like totally an exclam move. Even rook takes f7 looks pretty good. Alright, let's say we... Yeah, I'm not missing anything. Bishop e3 is the best move for black. Okay. It goes on to examples 17 and 18, so maybe I actually missed a page of puzzles, but we can always pick that up next time. For now, we have the answers to the first 15 positions that we solved on stream. So thanks for joining me for reviewing these answers and analyzing some games a little bit, everyone. I have a schedule published on Twitch. I am a little bit unsure whether I am going to be able to adhere to it though, because I've kind of got a lot going on right now. I might have to move, things like that. So hopefully I'll just keep streaming every day. We'll see how that really shakes out. Until next time, good luck with your chess, everyone. And feel free to drop a comment on YouTube or something, or join on Discord. I'll drop a Discord link before I head today, just so you guys can join in if you really want to. Alrighty, see you guys next time. Thank you for